Welcome to Able Pathways Podcast. I'm Annabelle Ferber, founder of Able Pathways, where we provide executive function coaching for neurodiverse individuals and professional development for educators. Our podcast explores the windy journeys of learning and growth. Each episode, we travel the unique pathways taken by a diverse range of interesting people as they reflect on pivotal moments in their lives that led to unexpected insights and transformation. Through these conversations, we hope to illuminate the infinite pathways for how we grow and learn. Visit our show notes for links, information about our speakers, and resources mentioned on this episode. Today, we are exploring how taking a slightly different path from the usual academic route led to unexpected lessons with Rohan Pradhan, whose approach to professional growth has been shaped by a mix of experience, curiosity, and learning along the way. We'll trace the path that led to these insights and reflect on what they might mean going forward. I'm delighted to be joined by Rohan, an aspiring sports entrepreneur, as he shares his journey from being an engineer to a football coach to earning his master's in education from Harvard Graduate School of Education. So, Rohan, so nice to have you on the podcast. And I would love to hear what you are reading or watching or listening to, what captures your attention when you're not doing work.
Thank you so much. It was nice talking to you. Right now, I'm not I don't have a reading habit and I don't watch series. Something that I do really like watching is live sports. I follow a team in the English Premier League. I love Arsenal and they come from this North London side. So I really closely follow them, not just what they do on the field, but also what happens outside, because that part for me becomes really relevant and important. So I do really closely follow them. And right now, there's a lot to read for my classes. I'm just trying to go back to the things that our classes ask us to read, and sometimes I'm just like skim reading it and I don't pay attention, but there are some really interesting things, so I usually go back, or even some chapters they ask us to read but not the whole book. So if I really get interested, I do subscribe for the book and then try to read. So there was this professor called Juliana in one of her courses. I was like super impressed by what she shared in her class. It was a case study class, and she did have a book which is called, I think, Power for All. Yeah, it's called Power for All. And it's here.
Ooh, power, comma, for all. Cool.
Yeah. So I'm trying to read this, and there's some interesting stories in this book. So I have not finished. I think, in the second, third page. So very new to this.
Awesome. Do you listen to podcasts at all or listen to music, or where do you give your ears?
Yeah. Right now, everything is
School.
turning into schoolwork. Like I'm translating all of my notes into podcast, and that's how I like listening and learning. Yeah, and I think I learn better when I'm hearing rather than
Yeah.
me kind of really reading from the script. I really love that. So
That's a cool strategy. So you're saying you take your notes and you go text to speech so that you can then listen to it. You and I are the opposite. How fascinating. I got to get anything that's audio into written words so I
Oh.
can understand it and see it.
And something that I love doing, and this has become a thing, is like I learn more when I'm kind of talking about certain script or any kind of content with someone. Even if I listen to something, I love talking about that with someone. So I have few people in my contact list. They're kind enough to let me talk to them, but I think in few months from now, I think they are going to block me because
No, they're
I do
probably
torture them.
learning. They're learning so much. When I'm coaching students, I think a lot of people do well when they teach what they're learning. I think that really solidifies, helps you when you put what you're learning into your own words and you're really testing what you can come up with. I think that's a really good study strategy. And so, yeah, I encourage my students, if you don't have someone you can talk to your pet animal or even a stuffed animal, you
Oh,
can
wow.
still engage in the same way because it's the act of like processing that into language that helps you understand. So, teaching as a style of learning is really effective.
Wow. So fascinating. Can I just maybe mention something really quick here? And I don't know how much of a read aloud session that you had when you were a kid, but we never had read aloud session when we were small. And read aloud for us is like teacher asking us to stand up and then read, and then the next paragraph someone else reads. And we are
Yes.
basically not paying attention. We are just paying attention to the sound and just following so that when we get called, we know
We're ready.
exactly where we are. Otherwise, we are going to we're gonna be sent out of the class or have some punishment. So I was really interested when someone said to me about read aloud, and someone did read to me about a certain text. I understood. I was able to understand that far better than me reading myself.
Yeah, yeah. When I love asking people what small joy or simple pleasure they engage with, and lots of folks I've asked have, you know, basically described, hobbies they do or just things that bring them a little bit of joy. You're a full-time student, so I don't know how much time you have for it, but are there things you're able to do that are just for you?
I think it's a good start, and a disclaimer right away is like I think for anyone who's listening to this or even you'll hear a lot about football, soccer,
That's okay.
and I think and and I tend to kind of really get sucked into or my world revolves around that all the time. So we do have a team here, and we used to play every week soccer with our friends, and that used to be something that I really, really used to enjoy. And
Yeah.
even used to kind of really reschedule my meetings for that particular game, and like
Yeah.
have that calendar for myself to just go and play. And I think I've made friends by meeting them at the field, and there's this competition, but there's also like moments. So I've loved doing that particularly, but also like because every week when we go to the class, we meet different people. Like there's about 700 people, and even every day you meet one person, it takes you 2 years to meet everyone.
Mm,
So I love meeting them and also hearing them about them, and especially like the office hours have been really interesting for me. The
mhm,
teachers who are teaching you, you don't know them
mm.
because you don't know their background. What happened to them when they were a kid? Do they like soccer team? I was really interested, and I saw one of my there was this course where I was just checking who the faculty is, and then the faculty says, "I love soccer and I used to coach soccer." I'm like, "Okay, I'm selecting that course." And then I went up to meet him, and then he was wearing a soccer socks, and he showed it to me. And then and
That's
there's so
cool.
much fun to know people just beyond what
Mhm.
they teach and what their role is.
Their expertises, yeah, yeah. I've watched Ted Lasso, that is the extent of my soccer knowledge, but it was a really good introduction
Oh yeah.
to that camaraderie and brotherhood, I don't know, for lack of a better word, or sisterhood, and the relationship between coach and players, and the relationship between the players and the public, and then the role they serve in community. Let me ask you, what are you studying right now? What degree are you pursuing?
Uh, so it's master's in education, and my specialization is in education leadership, organization, and entrepreneurship. And every
Mm.
time I say this to someone, I need to kind of really first say it to myself because it's just coming together of different words.
It makes
It's
sense.
education, leadership, organization, and entrepreneurship.
So everything.
Yeah, almost. And in fact, when I hear my friends and then their course and what they're doing, I feel like, oh, this is just one part of everything that I thought it
I
was.
wasn't joking. That is sort of covers all of anything in education. That's so cool. What set you on that path? How did you get to studying such a comprehensive field?
Um, like if someone would ask me, like, when I was maybe in grade 10 or 12, what is the one thing that you would like to do? Maybe studying a course here and around entrepreneurship would not be even my 50th thing.
Right.
Like it was always around soccer. Oh, maybe going to this stadium to watch this match, or meeting this person and so and so forth. Meeting this football coach or meeting this football player. I think if I have to maybe answer that question, it's just been like one thing leading to another, and it's like a cliche thing to say, and maybe that might sound boring, but it's literally it is literally that. from engineering to working in Bangalore, with mixed gender, club, boys and girls, um, and coming back to Sikkim and working with kids there and working with coaches and tried to start a grassroots program, culture, and then all of a sudden, oh, I think there are multiple things that has happened now. I think I can maybe learn a little bit more about what just happened in the last 10, 15 years, and is there something which can really put all of these things together,
Mm.
and, and let's see. And that has
Mhm.
become one of the weirdest learning for myself also. Like I've learned by doing rather than our education system is like, okay, you learn. Now you're ready to go and do something. So even in engineering, like there's
Yeah.
so much of theories inside the classroom. Okay, this is what a transformer looks like. This is how you should kind of really around electricity or whatever. I don't even remember the terms now. That's how in attentive I was in the class maybe.
Mhm.
Doesn't even remember a word. And it was now you're ready after 4 years. Now go in and start working. Rather than on the hindsight, I've worked and had experiences. Now it's like, oh, now let's see what's up.
Yeah. I had a similar experience of working and then saying, "Oh, I should go get a degree that matches what I figured out I love to
Mhm,
do or will give me more freedom to do what I'm loving to do."
mm.
And it makes me think about some people when they're writing a paper, they come out of the gate, their thesis, they got it, and then they build their evidence.
Mm,
I don't write a paper like that, and my life isn't like that either. Instead, I start with what's interesting, where the evidence or the research is, and then whatever comes out of that, I'll name it, and that's the thesis. And it sounds similar that you had all these really interesting experiences and found yourself dipping in and out of roles where you're coaching, educating, working, and then went and found the degree that sort of like give coherency to all of that in a way.
yeah, and it's very interesting because even my parents, like when they get asked, because they do get asked, like, "What is your son doing?" And I feel sorry for them because they are like lost, like how to explain. I find difficult to explain what I'm doing also at times, and I feel sorry because my parents. They put me into an engineering college and got out of the engineering college. I don't know even if they know that I did pass the college or not, which I think that there's a degree to kind of really say that I did, which I think that's all matters for them and for a lot of us. Engineering, and then all of a sudden doing something around sports, and then all of a sudden now into education. Like, what are you talking about? How does sports and how does football, what we call back home,
Yeah.
is connected to sport or is connected to education and working in schools? Like all of a sudden now
Mm,
projects around universities.
mm.
And I feel sorry for them because they have a hard time explaining to people who ask them. And then sometimes I feel, when they start explaining, people might feel like, what are they talking? Do they even know what their son is doing?
It's fun to be a bit of a mystery though, isn't it? So, I would love to hear if, you've described a very windy path, let's say, to lead you to Master of Education. Can you think back to, with hindsight, not that you knew it at the time, but looking back, you can point to a moment of like, that was early evidence that I was going to be where I am today.
Yeah, like I think there are moments, like especially here when people ask, "Oh, what are you going to do after college, after Masters of Education?" There are, I think, I have two or three ways of answering to this. One is, I don't know, and people might think like, "Oh, you don't have a focus. You're not focused enough to know what you're going to do in life." So I have like few answers to that, and my second answer is like, "Oh, maybe I'll do something around football and education. That's all I know, but I don't know what and how and when is that going to happen and stuff like that." So I think there was like, I think when I can recall back to my education and my experiences, like I remember one time, like this moment where my maths teacher was also my sports teacher. So he had a big influence on a lot of us, including myself, and almost like few generations. He's still at the same school, and he's still doing what he loves doing, and he's a very celebrated figure, not in just that school, but also in the regions. So he comes with a lot of experience of knowing the region, the people, the culture, and also the resources that's available out there. So he can guide people, and he's working around cultivating girls soccer, football
Mhm.
culture back in the region. So I think him when I can maybe remember that he was my maths teacher. Like I loved maths because of him and wanted to do good in maths. And a lot of us, in fact, my whole classmates who were interested in soccer, we used to look up to him, and we are still very connected with him. So it was him. Because of him, I think we started loving soccer, and he used to take care of us, and I used to be a guardian also, as well as someone who would keep us on track. So
When I think about the role of a physical educator or sports person in a young person's life, they can be the most important role model and relationship of all. It's so important, is what I'm trying to say. And I think it's really cool that despite those cultural pressures, you found a way, to really integrate that into what you're learning. So I know that you shared you'd started to study engineering and then you sort of shifted. What was for you that trigger where you got out of that path and into one that led you to education?
did you mention about from engineering to education?
Yeah, or there was something in the middle there?
Yeah, I think that's the major transition, and the most difficult one, and especially for my parents, rather than because there's a lot of investment, in terms of time and energy and resources and even expectations. You invest in someone for 4 years or even before 4 years, getting someone into their kid into science stream at grade 11 and 12, and that expectation really builds from there. I think I think that I had few transitions, especially the school transitions. I studied like for 11 years in one particular school, all boys school, where sports and my math teacher had a huge influence on me and also my friends. So that was one phase. And there was like these 2 years in another school with a co-ed school where sports was not looked upon as something which is of priority, but with the lack of resources and lack of opportunity that I was like, wow, like I love sports and I don't have opportunities, then I think the only way we can get opportunities to basically create one. And who creates that for us is like, there's no one. So we have to do it on our own. So we had to create that because we love, playing. And then the college, almost the same experience. Like we didn't have opportunities. Now there's no one to give us those opportunities. Now what do we do? Create one.
Mhm.
So we started creating one. And then I think it was this big transition from having undergrad degree in engineering, and then now what do we do? And there were a few decisions like, okay, you can get into a government job, stay in Sikkim, work in the government, you'll be fine, And almost like everyone from my class was getting a job. Like it was a guaranteed job.
Yeah.
You don't even have to try hard. But then the other way is like, okay, now go outside and explore something. Ideally in this field of study, but it would be weird or it would be you have to kind of really convince a lot of people if you want to switch field. So then I think it was basically like this feeling of really living a life where you have to where you living a life where you can think about the thing that you love, where you don't have to have a time stamp on it. 9 o'clock till 5 o'clock, I'm going to think about this. And I'm waiting for the 5 o'clock to hit so that I can go and play soccer or I can be part of soccer. How amazing it would be when you just wake up and then you think about something that you do and that's also work. And then you go back to bed and then you're still working, but you've never felt that you're working. So how amazing it would be, to kind of really live a life like that. So and then I was like, why don't we try doing something like that? And also like a lot of our own experiences as kids, me and my friends, like we never had opportunities like what we see outside of Sikkim, where kids are taken to the ground, where parents are accompanying them, they are playing tournaments and they are enjoying, they're having fun, there are tournaments for them and they just basically love doing that. So it's also like, okay, there's so much of passion back home in Sikkim, so much of love for sport, but there is no opportunity. And in fact, it used to be like when I was a kid, my parents used to really they would have to pull us back to home, because it used to be dark. We used to go out when it was bright, sunny. We used to be all day outside the field. play with many friends, like who we even don't know. We've just met them and cry, and you fight with some people, and you have your own conflicts there, and you kind of really manage. And you come back home as friends because you know that if you come back home with conflict, then you would not be the parents would not send you again. Right?
There
So
was motivation
yeah,
to, yeah.
motivation to kind of really help this younger brother, be friends with the elder and make a bond. So
Fascinating.
and then there's so much of love for the sport back home. So just going outside of Sikkim and kind of really exploring what is there, so that we can come back to Sikkim and can really start this.
That's your goal.
Yeah, that was the motivating factor, the purpose of really trying something, which is beyond the regular engineering and get a job. And
I see. Yeah, you could justify your path by the value you could bring back
Mm,
if you were allowed to kind of chart your own path.
yeah, and looking back at it, like it's like demand and supply. In somewhere in the south or in Bangalore that I was in, parents would really do their level best. They would watch football matches, they would wear football jerseys just to make sure that the kid is also interested, and just a role model for the kid. And the kid would not want to be on the field. Kid is, the kid loves something else.
Yeah.
But parents are so interested in sports that they would kind of really do put extra effort to kind of really do that. But in Sikkim, on the other hand, kids are extremely passionate about sports. They love sport. And it's the adults, who's not creating this atmosphere for the kids,
Interesting.
ecosystem for the kids to kind of really excel or continue what they love doing. So it was this balance, which was very unique for me.
You mentioned your math/sports teacher, soccer teacher, but did you have a model of someone taking such a unique path, or was that something that just came from you?
I had a cousin brother who was in like who had amazing education. He was amazing education at that time is like you get good grades, right? Like you are the topper and you get 90% above in all your grade, yeah, and exams. So he had all of that, and then he used to work for a very famous company. I think he was Adidas at the time, and and he used to love sports also. So looking at him is like, wow. Like, but he did take the normal route, which is like get an engineering, and through engineering he got a position. I think he did MBA as well. So and looking at him is like, wow, it would be amazing to kind of really work in a place where there's soccer and you get to talk about soccer. And I think they were part of designing some very cool footwear, and he used to
Mm,
really share or offer boots and jerseys, and it used to be very fancy ones, that you don't get in Sikkim. So my friends,
mm.
I used to, and I was, it was funny because I think there was one moment where he sent me like a very famous, and this was a very famous. I aspire to kind of get one now because it's so famous and I love it, and it's a Predator, Adidas Predator stuff
I
for
didn't
football.
understand any of those words. Translate them into someone who doesn't know sports for a
Okay,
second.
great. Thank you for pausing me for that.
Studs. Wait a minute.
It's a
What are
football boot where you
with the
where you-
shoes with the spikes on them?
yes, with the spikes on.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
I
thank you
think
so
I
much
called
for
them cleats when I was a
cleats.
kid.
Yeah, they're
Is that
called
what they're
studs,
called?
cleats. Yeah, cleats. Yeah,
Okay, they
we
have
we call
lots
it
of
football
names.
boots. Yeah,
Okay, okay.
yeah, it's a famous one. And at that point of time, he did send it to me, and I didn't know the value of that. So he would have access to all of these things that we would just watch on television or watch a soccer player wearing it.
I mean, I do just wanna recognize that you really are somewhat of a pioneer here with the life choices you made because it does not even though you had inspiration and there wasn't really anyone who like walked the path ahead of you, so you charted those steps for yourself without really knowing exactly how it would work out. It's just quite incredible.
Oh, thank you so much. I would say so, like and I also did not know what I was doing, and it was much easier that I could fail and people would be still fine, because I had nothing ahead of me. So
Let's move into talking a bit more about pivotal moments in your
Mm.
life. And I'm wondering if there was like a belief about the world or, in a broad sense or more specifically about learning, something that you thought that's changed a lot in recent times, especially with now being back in school for a master's of ed.
Like a lot, in fact, and I'm trying to kind of really think, which one should I share? And like, I think there's like this one which we talk about always, that like, and also in education field, like one is basically like you learn inside the classroom, and there's a saying, and in fact, all as far as I can remember, the adults who I was around when I was small is like, okay, what are you doing? And if we say, "Oh, we are playing," and then they would be like, "Oh, but when are you studying? When are you learning?" Right? Learning used to be like, okay, remember. If you remember like the word by word for a particular definition, if you remember those definitions, or if you remember the equation, then you are learning. We never
The learning is just memory
memory.
retention.
Yeah. And I don't even remember having people talk about learning in particular, just using the word learning. It was study. Studying for me and a lot of my friends used to be remembering. Do you remember everything? And it's very interesting in many ways that one is we used to talk about, okay, maths and science and history and geography and social science. These are the things that you should learn. And the learning only happens inside the classroom. And now when I look back at it, everything that I've done, I only remember few, like it's so hard for me to even remember a few words or definitions or from my engineering field because I remember every single thing that happened on the ground. Everyone that I played with, the teams that we played against, the people who scored the goals, and the memory. Like, I remember almost everything, and I still am in touch with the friends that we used to play with. So for me, like learning has always been outside the classroom. So our we are conditioned to believe that the learning has to happen inside the classroom with a teacher saying something, and you kind of really remembering that, and you don't even get to kind of really question or have your own opinions or ask questions. And that's a different approach here, which I'm really struggling with.
From your professors right now. Yeah.
Yeah, they make you like think about what they say or what you read from the text. They don't give you answers at all. Even if you go and ask them, like they ask you, like, what do you think?
What do you think?
What do you think? And then they're like, okay, why don't you share with your group? And then let's find out what is your opinion on this. Oh, then why don't you maybe read this? So they always are directing you to something, and they're not the source of knowledge. Or they are not the right answers. They don't have the right answers, and they want to be challenged. And that's how, yeah, you keep kind of really asking questions. Like, and nowadays, like it's even when I'm texting people, what do you think? What's your opinion? And it's so much like it's become a thing, and that happens with me a lot of times. Is when I started working professionally, and I had to really send these professional messages to a group of kids and their parents, and my message would be, "Hi, how are you? Hope you're doing well." And it used to be in like a standard format, and I used to do that with my friends also. And my friends are like, "What happened to you all of a sudden? Why are you texting me in this format?" So it just really gets into me. So right now, I think I feel the same, but coming back to your question is like, the classroom being the only source of learning
Yeah.
space, um, was has been like one of the biggest transformation.
Yeah, that makes sense. One of my students, I text my student between our meetings, and I mean, it's really just this more recently, the last few years, that I've stopped adding periods on my texts because one of my students told me that I look psychotic when I do that, that it's just not how people communicate through text. And so I had to just relinquish the grammar. And now when I see a period, I mean, it's so interesting how quickly that can change because now if a friend sends me a text and there are semicolons and periods, I'm like, what's up with them? That's so weird. Why are they acting like that? It is funny that communication. So to reiterate, if I understand, like, you grew up in a system where you were sort of living in this reality that the learning happened in the classroom through an expert teacher telling you what's right, and your job as a learner is to memorize what they shared, but it is not to question it, and it's not really to learn outside of that space either, but your experience has taught you otherwise, and that's maybe why you pursued ways to integrate your love for sports with education, because that's a space outside of those
Yeah,
walls.
yeah, yeah. And in fact, there's so many layers to this because, in soccer, as a coach, if your team is playing, like you cannot run the soccer team by because you are outside as a coach. You have to let the kids play, right? So
Yeah.
you're hands off. Like you've given them instructions, and now it's even if they miss a goal, miss a shot, like you don't have control. You have, and they have to make decisions on the field. You cannot really make a pattern exactly. You cannot say this person passes the ball to this person or this person. That same pattern is not going to repeat. So
Mhm,
you train someone and you just let them go, and now you
mhm,
just have to watch from outside and let them do what they can. And now they learn from that. Oh, we missed a goal from this. Okay, now come back and maybe let's train again and again go back. So
mhm.
I think this is, I think, in education, like I never had an opportunity to do that in engineering. Like it's so much hands on. All my friends are working with transformers right now, and they're working with systems where they really have to test. We were told not to press certain buttons, and I'm sure there was a reason for that. And that's why the college is still there. But it's like so much of there's a fear, right? And if someone
Mhm.
tells you not to press that button, then we will never press any of the buttons ever because you know that
Yes.
there's a fear there. So I think, yeah, I never tried anything with my hands at college. So and I know nothing about what a transformer. I just know that there was this teacher who used to come to our class, write transformer every single class for like 3-4 months. That's why I know the word transformer because he he put it.
So much
Yeah.
repetition. The reason actually I use the language of, executive function coach is
Mm,
taking that from sports, even though I don't know anything about sports, I conceptually understand sports. And when I'm thinking about teaching skills, there's opportunities for practice and repetition, but it's not me as a teacher repeating, it's the student practicing those skills in ways. Um, and when I'll, especially when I'm first sort of working with someone, we'll talk about like a sports coach. I'll work to help you strengthen the muscles you need to play this game of school or college or whatever it may be. And we'll put together a game plan for those big
mm,
games, big exams and things. And then afterwards, I'm not here to judge you. We'll huddle and we'll analyze what went well, what you want to do differently next time. And that's more like teaching as a coach than teaching in that more traditional way. And I think my experience has been it's much more effective for the student, but selfishly, it's much more pleasant for me to reward exploration, effort, and bravery than it is getting something right because you've got a good memory, or the other ways in which we reward students for learning that doesn't actually work outside of a school setting in a job or in life and partnerships with people is not how we progress, right? It's like getting it right all the time and just being good at the exam. You need to be good at the playing part. And so I get that on a deep level without really understanding sports at all.
no, I think you are doing absolutely fine, and that's exactly. And to this point, like just the definition, and you got me really thinking about this. Like just the definition of a teacher is supposed to be an expert because the teacher is supposed to give you right answers, whereas just a definition of a coach is basically to help you improve. And just now, when I'm really thinking about these two things, there was two different ways of thinking about these two things.
Really, yeah, really different. I do think there are right answers to things. So I just want to say to anyone who's listening, there are some right answers. There are equations that solve problems and we need to learn them. So there are some rules.
Mm,
But in terms of like building skills and confidence and critical thinking, now those ones don't have
mm,
that same simplicity. I think about geography, like, yes, this is the name of the country and this is the capital and this is
mm,
what they grow there and those
mm.
facts can be learned, but I'm not totally convinced teachers need to teach that part because you could read about that, you could listen to that, you could watch a video and get that information. There's a special thing though I think a teacher can do, which is that building of skills and confidence and sense of self for that individual to figure out where their place is in the world. Staying on this track, talking about pivotal moments, is there a particular setback or failure that reshaped your approach to your life or the work you're doing?
I can think of many. Um, there's many, but I remember one very particular, and it has really transformed. I think it was, I think my grade 12 exams, and that was board exams, which is like the most important exam in a student's life. That's a make or break, and that's how we put it.
Because depending how you do, that dictates what you get to do after?
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. And the college that you go to and the scholarship that you can attain. So and then people start preparing for these exams when they are in grade 5 or grade 6, and I never had any idea about what this is until much later. I think it was grade 11. That's where I understood. Oh, there's this big exam that's coming up, and in a year or two, which I have to prepare. Uh, but I did not do well in that exam. In fact, I failed in the exam. I had to get certain marks, like about 33 out of 100 to kind of really pass. And I failed in maths, the subject that I really, really loved. My parents and my uncle, who's also quite significant, has a significant role to play in my life. So he was my maths teacher, and I loved maths because of him as well. So they were all really expecting good grades from me, but I failed in maths. But it was interesting how my parents had really well, took that, and they never blamed, or they're like, okay, now let's think about what happens in the future. But they still had hopes that I would really get into these big colleges called IIT. I think there's about 10, 15 of these colleges all over India. I think there's more now, where if you perform good and you get to these elite universities, and if you get into these elite universities, then you get jobs at big companies,
Job
high
security and yeah, okay.
high
Yeah.
paying jobs at big companies. So this is that particular exam. So I failed in that exam. So but they were still had high hopes after I failed in the exam that I would prepare for another 1 year and then
You
and
can
eventually
retake
get
it?
into, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. But that was also a moment where I was like, this is not something that I really want to do. I'm already getting a feeling of this. And it was not very clear back then, but there was like it did give me a message that like maybe this is too painful for me to kind of really continue doing.
So, yeah, that probably didn't feel good at the time, but it got you out of a particular pattern that you have would have been heading down if you'd done really well on that.
Exactly. It trained my parents basically, because parents do play a significant role in India and in a place like Sikkim, because they make decisions. They make decisions even much later in their life as parents. Even like, what do you eat today, or what do you wear? It's basically the parents do decide a lot of that. So I think it trained my parents to kind of really start to believe that, oh, maybe this is not what he wants. Maybe my son is not as brilliant as we all think he is. We just had, and then burst their bubbles, so at least, so, and then it really, then the whole coming in terms with their reality that maybe he might choose something that we all might not like, and maybe we might have to accept that is something. I think it started from there.
So, how long have you been in your master's program? Was it something that started last semester in the fall
Exactly.
25?
Exactly.
So, and is it a 1 year or 2 year?
It's a 1 year program.
What made you decide to do that? Why come all the way here?
One is the degree, which is like the most important thing in India.
Okay, so
Or when you
degree's
have
solid.
degree, joking. That is important in India, but the place that I come from and the work that I'm doing, it does not require a degree, because
Mm.
the things that we are doing back in Sikkim, which is working with kids, teaching them soccer or coaching them soccer, or really creating this ecosystem of coaches and players who are interested in soccer, as a recreation to really start off with, and then maybe they find a passion and continue to kind of really believe that they can do it, and then create pathways for them to kind of really achieve that. And even if
Mhm.
they don't do that, then they still have something that they can really
Mhm.
continue doing, which they love, which is soccer and things around soccer or sports, and so on and so forth. So the reason the reason is, one is like, I think it's just very curious, like, and the thing that I used to kind of really think back in India when we started this is like, it would be really cool because these two things are looked at as too different. components of education: sports and education, or academics. Science and maths, it's important. And that is something that you have to be good at. Sports is when you have free time. It's when you are tired of studying, then you play sports for 15 minutes, half an hour, 1 hour, and then
It's a
you
break from life,
from
from
life.
real life. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that's
So
the
so bringing I mean, you're not just bringing a master's of education, you're at Harvard. I would imagine just existing as
mhm.
somebody who's integrating, elite education with sports, that alone could create a ripple effect of, like, seeing sports as more than just a break from academics.
Yeah, and that's the hardest part for my parents or anyone to kind of really connect. We are doing sports, but how did you end up at this particular college? Because this college is not known for sports.
So one of the things that you described a bit earlier that made me think about too, this like punishment system that exists in education. In sports, though, if you make a mistake on the field, you don't fail out of sports. It's just seen as an opportunity to work on that skill and get better at it. And that kind of thinking, I would love to see transition more into the academic space. And there's a lot to really take and understand from the sports and coaching world that would really benefit academics. Would you agree with that? I see you were nodding, but I wondered your thoughts.
It got me reminded of this particular thing that even the person who grades you, I think that really makes a whole lot of difference. In fact, what I realized in one of my courses, like, the faculty who's teaching me is not even grading me. There's others as teaching fellows who are in the classroom. They are the ones who are observing my participation and reading my reflections, and they are the ones who are grading it. So my relationship with this particular faculty completely changes because I don't have to worry about if I ask this weird question or if I,
They're
ask
not going to
something
punish you for that.
and my grades don't even it's not a two-way thing between the faculty and me. There are other people who are maybe grading me, and I can be totally myself. So that was quite interesting. I don't know if I answered that question.
No, no, no. I was just curious about your experience with yeah, the type of grading that happens in an academic teaching
Mm,
situation versus the kind of assessment judgment you get in the athletic
well,
coaching space. And for the individual, how that changes their relationship to how they learn and how brave they are with making a
mm,
mistake or how willing they are to put themselves out there. I think it changes so much.
yeah, I think something that I used to tell this to a few friends of mine who are in education also, like, in education, like when I failed in class 12. That was the first time I failed. First time I failed in, I think, any subject. So, like, I never experienced failure before that in academics. So what happens is then versus sports, like you fail so many times, and it's like this sinusoidal kind of wave, which when you win, you go up, and you fail the next game. But the
Yep.
next game, and then the game which you just maybe lost versus the next game that is coming up is very close to each other. So then you again kind of really have an opportunity to kind of maybe win and experience that joy of winning. And that does not determine you to be here all the time.
Mhm.
Like you feel another moment. So this like whole experience of the joy of victory and teamwork, and it almost feels like it's you're top of the world, and the next day you're like really sad and depressed, and you're wondering what happened. You know.
Yep.
So again, you have another opportunity to kind of really make that right.
And that seems to me that the winning and the failing that you described within the sports world feels like a much more accurate reflection of reality in life. What happens in the school setting, which does not really reflect what life will be like outside of those walls. A lot of folks I work with end up seeking my kind of help after failing something. And the story I hear over and over again is I've never failed anything in my life. So we're not just dealing with skills, we're dealing with like an existential crisis. We're dealing with like emotional wounds, intellectual wounds, and that's what school has taught them is they are valued for getting it right and they're
Mm,
not valued when they get it wrong.
mm,
Whereas sports or coaching. Actually, I think video games is a great example too of you level up as your skills grow and yeah, you win and you fail, but you're not like dead. You get another
Yeah.
life. You get more chances. Your life isn't over. But it can feel that way, like very existential. And especially for kids who tend to be like good at school and quite bright, and then to fail shatters their self-esteem too.
Building
Then
that coping mechanism, right? To kind of really have to kind of really deal with such experiences of even joy. I've seen people who are like, they've won something and they're so excited they don't know what to do. And I had these experiences in my college. In fact, my friends like who joined college, they had 90% uh, percentage of pass mark,
oh,
and they
mhm,
joined college for free scholarship
mhm,
because anyone who
mhm.
joins college having more than 90% um, grade, if that's right, they would have scholarship. And they've joined college, but they've been with parents all their life. And now all of a sudden, they are coming to this uncontrolled environment where they have to decide what to do with their life. They don't know.
Ugh, I'm so glad I failed so many times earlier in life.
Yeah. Now we feel good about our failures looking back at it.
So I want to ask you, in your work so far, working with students, what aspects of teaching and coaching do you love the most that you find like meaningful and energizing to you? What do you get out of this work personally?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. So for me, like working with kids as coaches, we always have the tendency, like you mentioned, you know, as we go higher up to the grades as teacher, like you are considered to be successful because you get to work with
Oh, older
adults,
kids. Yeah.
yeah, adults and older kids, and maybe your pay is higher and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
but interestingly, even in this particular case, as coaches, like the tendency is like to go and coach a soccer team, men's soccer team or women's soccer team, and play week matches in the weekends and win big trophies. And that's the hope, that's the aspiration. And I think that's also the reason why people start loving sports in the first place. They don't watch kids play and then fall in love with sports because they watch the adults play and then they kind of really get into sports. But for me, I think the biggest joy that I get is when kids really have some experiences with us, like either on a 40-minute session that they learn something, and then when they start, and this has happened a few times, when they start sharing as if they are the coaches with others who did not have that same experience, like maybe they are friends from their neighborhood. They go and parents have shared these videos and pictures, is that they go and share almost, they kind of replicate or imitate the
Yeah.
coaches, and
Yeah.
then they become this like the expert. Or when, and I think there's also peer-to-peer learning that's happening there, when you learn something you're trying to share with others and the other person is also like really interested and want to know and learn. So there was this whole series of things that happened when a kid who was a part of a program went home and started sharing the
Mhm.
same thing with a group of friends from his neighborhood. And it was really interesting, and I think that gives them confidence. And this was like a really timid kid, who was very shy, who didn't really talk much or engage much. But at his own neighborhood, he's very confident now because he gets to share with his friends. And this particular parent used to share videos and photos of him
Mm.
sharing these things with his friends. That was like really, really interesting to kind of really see. And I think that gives me like much, like there's joy there because
Yeah.
as much as they score goals and they win matches and they do all of these stuff, I think for me that has become, even when I was small, like I know my friends teaching me certain things and I going and teaching them certain things, and it's not about how good we were. Maybe at that point of time it felt important to us how good we were, but looking back at it, it's like the bond that they are kind of really having, the friendship that they're building. And
Yeah, like a healthy kind of competition where you're pushing each other up and up and up together as opposed to just being combative, which is the dynamic that's set up with grades and exams sets up a dynamic of that head-to-head competition. Funnily enough, sports are seen as competitive, but there's so much cooperation necessary for it.
yeah, and especially here, like this is my biggest one of the biggest realization is everything happens with a team. This collaboration every single time, every single class, every single subject. either you share with a friend. Every time they are asking us to kind of make it form a small group, form a small group. Like there's nothing that you have to do solo, except maybe even that happens with when you're kind of really debriefing or reflecting. They ask you to kind of really have a small working group to kind of really reflect on what you just learned. So there is so much of collaboration happening, right? Intentional
Mhm.
collaboration. Like you ask, it's part of the whole program. But where in India, like it's so much about you learn and you're not supposed to show others, or in fact that is termed as cheating.
Mhm.
When you share your work with someone and someone really
Mhm.
learns from you, that it's termed as cheating, and so much of competition right from when you were young. So, and when I see these things happening with the kids, there's this collaboration already happening, the teamwork,
Yeah.
right? There's this sharing as well as learning, and it's both ways. So
That makes a lot of sense. If you project yourself 5 years in the future, what are some things that you hope are happening for yourself, for your communities, for the work you're involved with? What are some things you're hoping has progressed over the next 5 years?
And I think this is a question that a lot of times, at least in the work or the education that I'm having, it's a very common question. People,
Mm.
because it's a very short program and people keep asking all these questions all the time. What do you want to do? Where do you see yourself? And I think my answer to that is like, at least, in order to kind of really tell people what I would be doing, they would need some idea of the context. And I think to there's been significant change in terms of how people look at sport back in Sikkim. Like there's more academies which is being set up. People are
Mhm.
really investing in kids, and they feel that it's important for the kids to learn, have experiences. Because some of the questions that people used to ask when we started early is like, when is my son going to play for the team and the school team, or when is my son getting selected for to play in this particular league? So these are very common questions. We want to kind of really go to the or define success. Success is
Mm.
that is what success means to a lot of people. So we have to tell them like, no, no, no. Like, even if your son is not scoring or kicking the ball, it's fine. They will learn it, and this is the experience that you need to have. So people are trying to really shift that mindset
Mm.
of sport or defining what success is, even at sports, and really emphasizing on the experience part of it. So girls and boys can play together. Soccer is a sport where even girls can play. And people will come up with, oh, it's a physical sport. No, girls cannot play physical sport. Okay, I'll put my daughter in swimming. Maybe not, physical sport. It's okay. At a young age, you can kind of really have a mixed gender. So people, as it's that mindset, it's a change in how people really think.
I like that. Yeah. Yeah.
And even like sports coaches, like, what do you do? And then we're like, I'm a coach. But the question, what else do you do? Because coach is looked upon as something that you can do outside your regular work. So the perception of people looking at sports teacher, sports education, physical education, there is a significant growth in that area. People are looking
Mhm.
at sports much more in terms of it's part of education, it's part of
Mhm.
learning. So that's been something.
I love that. Yeah. Um, a last question I wanna ask you would be, let's say that there is a young Rohan out there right now who's had some similar experiences or who has this love for sports and faced with, like, decisions around walking the path people have told them to walk or try something new, or if you'd prefer to speak to your own 16, 17, 18-year-old self, what message would you have for a young person like that?
I have to kind of really go back and think about when I was 16, 17, a message that I want to maybe share to myself. I think a lot of it is something that we talked about here in this particular call also is like, I think there's no right answers. And until even recently here, and then this is again like having grown up in a place where there's always a right answer, and there's
Mm.
someone who always knows the right answer, and that person you are not supposed to really question that particular source, a
Mhm.
teacher or especially and as in a place like ours when it's very hierarchical. So you never question your father or even ask questions, or a teacher or even elder in the room. They're always right. So I think I was really scared when I was young and didn't when I didn't know anything, like, oh, I should not be sharing what I don't know, or I should not be curious about what I don't know. I should not be asking questions for what I don't know, and to kind of really kind of have this particular kind of image of me where I figured everything out, like, because I got good grades, like, I am the perfect son, I am the perfect student, just this image, like, it's all like basically, you basically portray something that you are not. So I think if there's one message, then I would say like there's no right answers, and it's just like keep exploring, like just doing like, and also people need to have like long term vision, I believe, at some point of time, but also like not getting stuck to the long term vision. Like it's just like doing the next thing, right, or next thing to leads to next thing, and just doing the next thing the best you can, and that'll lead to another next thing. So just like it's, and I don't know what the 5 years looks like for me in the next 5 years, but it's something that it's always led to the next best thing that has happened.
I
So,
love
yeah.
that. Yeah. Well, it's been delightful to chat with you. Are there any organizations or people that you want to give a shout out to promote? I'd love to open that space up.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. There's a lot of people who've like really done great work, and I've had the pleasure and been very fortunate to kind of really be in close proximities to that, to the work that they've done, and to be connected with them. Like people like, I think Sam. I don't know if you know Sam. Sam Milkaiba. It was funny because it was him. There was a lot of mentorship that's going around back in Sikkim, and I was very fortunate to kind of really meet people like him and Moses and Miss Thapa and Miss Yolmo. So they were there alongside Miss Trail, who we worked very closely during pandemic. And also the pandemic gave us opportunity to really be connected because we had nothing to do. All that we could do is like really meet each other and maybe share our problems. And I'm like, oh, I wish this could happen or that could happen. So I learned a lot from them, especially the
Mm,
education part of it.
mm,
Working with people like Kitso. Like Kitso is a student of taxi. She was working in Japan and from Bhutan, but we had amazing. I think my foundation. I would say that was my foundation. If I had maybe imagine that as a school, maybe that would be like grade 1 to grade 5. And they really took care of me and really uh, basically scaffolded me
yeah.
in the process of making mistakes, and it's fine, and encouraging me. You need someone like that to kind of really keep you motivating. So yeah, I think their work has really inspired me. How they kind of really live life also, like they are so passionate about the work that they do, very connected to the problems, and not just giving ideas and suggestions all the time. So I really appreciate the work that they've been doing.
Well, thank you so much. And yeah, thank you for sharing your story with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It was lovely talking to you, and we'll hopefully stay connected and get an opportunity to talk more.
If you've enjoyed today's discussion, I invite you to share this episode and subscribe to Able Pathways podcast on your favorite platform. Your support helps us to share these meaningful conversations with more people. Visit ablepathways.com or check out the detailed show notes for links to resources and organizations mentioned in today's episode. Have thoughts about this episode or suggestions for future guests? We would love to hear from you. Leave us a comment or email us at hello@ablepathways.com. Until next time, I'm Annabelle, reminding you that there are infinite pathways to growth. May you travel yours with curiosity and courage.